Thank you guys so much for allowing me to interview you today. I am here with Denise Nicholas, actress and author known for Room 222 and In the Heat of the Night, and her best-selling book, Freshwater Road, and Mr. Charles Floyd Johnson, Emmy Award-winning producer and executive producer of The Rockford Files, Magna PI, NCIS, and Red Tail. So hello, and thank you guys for joining me this evening.
Thank
You're
you for
welcome.
having us.
So we will just jump right on in. So in the book, A Gathering of Voices, you touch on some key moments that sparked this movement. It's the desire to write as a Black character for Black characters on screen. Your first time in Janet Fitch's workshop, writing workshop, and the release of your first novel, Freshwater Road. But I'd love for you to go a bit deeper. What specifically inspired you to create the Longwood Writers Workshop, and what led you to gather this particular group of writers around your dining room table?
Okay, well, I think it all started when I kind of, and I talk about this a lot. I hit a wall with my own work because writing is so solitary. And I think I had just gotten full up to my eyeballs of the loneliness of writing, and I wasn't making enough progress in my own work. So I decided to try a workshop to not only help others get started, but to try to pump myself up as well. So to see if I could get going again with my own creative work. So that was the reason. It was partially because I wanted to share the things that I had learned in Janet's workshop with other people who were beginning the writing process. And the other part, as I said, was because I was, I hit a wall and I needed help. So
Mhm.
I said, let's
Mhm.
see if this will feed me and get me motivated. And it absolutely did.
I would say beyond motivated. You guys created something so powerful, and you brought together such a diverse group. Can you guys describe the journey from workshop to published book?
Uh, Denise, sort of when she decided to get this workshop together, had to go out and like scout for who was it that would work in this workshop, and she put some people together, and the first group of people didn't quite work. So then she went out and she scouted, and she knew Hattie. They were they were together in the Negro Ensemble Company,
Mhm.
and Hattie was writing, and she knew that, and she got Hattie, and eventually she got me, and she found Dr. Otto Stallworth because he was writing and had sent her material, and she was in a book club with Gwen Williams. So anyway, she pulled us all together, and we used to meet Akilah before the pandemic bi-monthly.
Yes.
Every 2 weeks,
Okay.
we would come to Denise Nicholas's house, and I'll include this because this is later question. Denise Nicholas lives on Longwood Avenue.
Okay.
So that answers that. And when we decided what do we call ourselves, we all said, wait, we're here on Longwood Avenue. It was had a nice ring to it. I've been to Longwood Gardens, so you know.
Have you?
Yes. Well,
Okay.
because I'm from Delaware, and
That's right.
so we met there, and Denise was, make it quick, a tough taskmaster.
Hmm.
She had learned a lot in Janet Fitch's workshop, and we learned from her that she's a master at the craft. She then sought to teach us the same thing, and she did. And when the pandemic came, we slowed down. We had to go by Zoom, and eventually, when we came back, we realized we had a ton of material that was not necessarily going to be in memoirs.
Hmm.
And so we said, how do we put it together? And one of our people, Denise Billings, said, Denise always wanted to get a book out. I don't remember necessarily that was the case, but we all decided it was best to do a book, then how to put it together.
Hmm.
So the last few years, it was a long process, maybe 6 years. The last 2 or 3 were the ones we put the pedal to the metal to try to put it together.
I'm assuming that you guys self-published because you've got the Longwood Publishing
Yeah.
LLC.
Yes.
That's
Well, I think we felt it was easier than waiting to send it out, try to get publishers interested. We didn't know how that was going to be, and we were all seasoned writers. We were
yeah.
all mature. We've had careers long careers before this, and we didn't feel we had the time to wait 2 or 3 years or even a year to do it. So we took upon ourselves to learn about self-publishing, which was a whole nother
Yeah.
uh, way to arcane thing to do, and we did that. It is a much more difficult process than they lead you to believe.
Yeah.
Yes, but we got it done, and we formed the Longwood Publishing Company. And you mentioned something in your questions about being publishers. Well, we are publishers for ourselves. We had grandiose ideas at one point of publishing lots of other people's materials, but
Hmm.
we realized that was
Dream of opening my front door and there were 45,000 boxes of people in their books sitting out on my porch. So we
we
said,
What?
said
let's
we
pull
said
back
we
from
can.
that idea.
Well, you know, we three of us are in the entertainment community, and there are lots
Hmm.
of who have ideas, and
Yeah.
we did a couple of readings of two of our other people's short memoirs, and suddenly there was this whole thing of can we join, can you read our material? So we thought we'll publish our own, but not we won't go further.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. You mentioned so now you gave me an idea for two new questions, but
Okay.
because well we as you know Phylicia Rashad she did the foreword which was
Yeah.
amazing because I learned something new about her. Her mother was a writer,
Yeah.
and and it makes a lot of sense. But I wonder how come she wasn't a part of the workshop.
Well, she go ahead, Denise.
Well, she's in New York, first of all, and we're in
Okay.
this.
Yeah.
However, her primary work as an actor and director, I don't know that I've never heard from her or Hattie's her closer friend if she's
Mhm.
talked about wanting to be a writer as well. I haven't heard that. So, um, but most importantly, we were in Los Angeles and she centered in New York and DC, I think, when she was at Howard, when she's at Howard. Yeah.
Well, it's wonderful that she's even still a part of the project. So,
Yes.
um, Charles mentioned you being a master at your craft, and I mean, it just makes sense, because you were a master at your craft in acting, and so I wondered how your backgrounds as actors influenced your writing process. How did storytelling on the page compare to storytelling on the screen?
Well, I think there certainly are elements that are in all of the formats that that we're talking about. But I think that when you're on the stage, you're acting somebody else's words. You're telling somebody else's story that you're making people believe is your story.
Hmm.
But when you write, it's your story, even if it's about somebody else. So I think the intimacy of the writing process is quite different than the because there is intimacy in the screenwriting process and acting as well. But I don't know that there's anything any closer creatively than a person sitting down and actually writing their own words, their own emotions, their own experiences, or they're relating the experiences of others that they work on and create and make their own. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
Okay. Um, well, Charles, you already answered this next question about being it makes sense that you've been to Longwood Gardens, but Denise, have you ever heard of Longwood Gardens?
I've heard of but never been.
Never been? Oh, well, Charles has got to take you.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a
All
beautiful place. It's
one of these
beautiful.
times in our travels. Yeah, it's beautiful.
So I want to say that maybe COVID could have been one of the biggest challenges that you guys faced when you know creating the anthology, but what was another maybe huge challenge and also a rewarding part of creating this anthology?
you got it, Charles.
Yeah. It was fascinating. Akilah, six people, most of us knew each other in some form or other. But during the time we were together putting this together, we learned a lot about each other.
Mhm.
We really became great friends and family in many ways. But the challenging part was we were all different people coming from different backgrounds. We came from different parts of the country. Otto and Hattie from the South, Hattie from Mississippi, Otto from Birmingham, Alabama, Denise from Detroit, me from Delaware, uh, and Denise Billings from St. Louis. The only person from Los Angeles was Gwen Williams. So you all these people, and they all had different careers. Denise Nicholas left Detroit and went down to do Freedom Summer when she was 18 or 19 years old. Hattie went up from Mississippi to New York. So we then had all these life experiences that we had to bring together. And once we got them on paper, it was like, how do we then, when we put them in a book, if we put them in a book, how do we make them work? How do we focus them? How do we coalesce them? That was the challenge.
Mhm.
But we worked very hard at it. And I remember one of the things, this book almost was called From the Dining Room Table because we did so much work at Denise's table. And I remember sitting there with her and with others at different times, putting all of the material that we had gathered out. What could we put in and where could it go and how could it connect? It was very challenging. I mean, and we had to take it seriously, and we did. And eventually, we found a way to focus the book. You talk about that wonderful uh, piece in that we use early on. A child that is not whatever in the village will burn it down.
Yeah.
Uh, that's seared in our brains, but we have another quote from Sonia Sanchez that we use in the beginning of the book about let our voices rise and whatever. I'm trying to get to some of your questions so we don't miss anything. You said one of the things you said is, I don't know if Denise has thought about this. If Gathering of Voices was a song, what it would be. And immediately for me, it came to mind, Lift Every Voice and Sing,
Ooh, yes.
the Negro National Anthem.
I
Yeah.
didn't even think of that. That was such
Well,
good.
the minute it came to me, I thought, what? And I came to lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring from that. That's kind of who we
Done.
wanted to be. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yes. Oh God, thank you for that. And
yeah,
the child who is not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth.
Yes.
yeah.
Brilliant.
So
Brilliant.
powerful. And I've never heard that quote.
I hadn't heard it till we
I'm
started looking for
there.
quotes. Yeah,
Loved it.
Who was that? Who was that quote, Charles?
I can't remember. You remember
About
who it
Philly.
was?
In the beginning of the book, it just says like
I
it
made it. It's a proverb, I think,
I
Denise.
think it just says like African proverb.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
It
okay.
don't think
doesn't
I ever
have
found out who wrote it. Yeah,
And so I was blown away by that. And we could probably talk for, yeah, it says African proverb. And we could talk for hours about what that means. But
Yes.
yeah,
that stood out to me so
yeah.
much. But so speaking about like sparking deep discussion, because that quote definitely can. Um, were there deep discussions among the group about healing, identity, or purpose? Because I know that if I'm sitting, bi-monthly with a group talking about, such themes that you have in the book, like childhood memories and, when love is not enough, and these conversations that we have all the time around our,
Yeah.
you know, tables with family and friends, it's going to bring up some really heavy, powerful stuff, you know what I mean? Which the book, does, and you guys do such a great job at putting your experiences together with like the craft. What were the discussions? How did it bring about healing, identity, and purpose? And then we'll get into the next.
I think I think you have to be very careful there in a writing workshop because your personal experiences are not the story. The
Interesting.
story is another thing. It is
Mm.
fed by your personal experiences. And so you have to be careful in a workshop like that, that it doesn't become a therapy session. You're trying to get to the work. You're not trying to
Mm.
heal people. That's somebody else's job. We are writers and
Okay.
we want to write the best that we can write. And you can take that stuff over to Dr. So and so, and he will help you, she will help you with that. So we can pick the things from our life experience that we want to exploit or that we want uh, to dig into and reveal more about in our response to those things. That's then you're beginning to write it rather than
Mhm.
therapy. You have to be real careful with that because artists, creative people, are always on the verge of needing therapy. So
Yes.
come to the table, ready to write. Don't come to the table ready to cry and boo-hoo and talk about who did what to whom 90 years ago. Okay. That's it.
Yeah.
It's about the craft. It's about shaping the craft into something that other people will enjoy. Not just you. You're not writing for you, but you are writing for you. Are you hearing me? So you have to balance those two things, because this is for the world. Therapy is just for you.
However, and Denise comes as a writing instructor, but I will tell you that there were times when we did pull things from our personal lives.
Absolutely.
That did touch us. And one of the things we stressed, and Denise stressed, is what went on in that room with 6 people stayed in that room. We didn't discuss it with our partners or with anybody else. It was there. And there were times when they were very emotional things where we were critical of the writing per se, because that was what our task was. Because we would sit around and read for, well, Denise would have us read. There were 6 of us. We could never read 6 pieces in one session. So 3 people would get to read in a session, and then you'd pass the work around. You'd have to have copies. Everybody would go around and whatever. And there was constructive criticism.
Yeah.
Sometimes it was a little hard to take, and sometimes there was laughter. Sometimes there was tears. But it was about, as Denise said, it was about the work. It wasn't about our personal lives in terms of that. We were writing, so we got through it all, and in the end, we wrote some personal stuff. But it was writing it. It wasn't living it. It wasn't therapy.
So you did.
There were times in workshop when we cried when people were talking about something that they had written that was deeply personal, and there were tears at them. We had boxes of Kleenex all the time.
All the time.
My point is that you take that emotion and that experience, and now you have to stop the crying, and you have to shape it, as I said earlier, shape it into something that's for the world, not just for you at the table. You see, so you're using yourself, but you're also stepping away from yourself because you're getting ready to present this to the world.
Yeah.
Which in a lot of ways is therapeutic and makes you just like, I feel like a better person in some ways. But, you know, and you guys, you did a good job at almost putting me in the room. So since I wasn't a fly on the wall, I would love to know what a typical Longwood Writers Workshop session was actually like. Walk me through it from start to finish. Who was the first one to show up? Was there food? Was there drinks? Was there music? Who was always late? What kind of exercises did you do? Like, you know, writing or otherwise? Because for some reason, I feel like you might have done some yoga or something at some point to kind of loosen up. I don't know. So put me in the room.
Well, the doorbell would ring.
How long were the sessions too?
What do we do? Mostly 2 hours, sometimes longer.
Sometimes 3. Yeah,
sometimes 3. But we started at 11 on every other Saturday, and we would go 12, 1, 2 o'clock, maybe sometimes. Now, the drinking and the eating part would come when we felt we had to celebrate something. Or it was somebody's birthday, because we always celebrated the birthday of the people at the table. So we would have cake and champagne and laugh and talk and have a little teeny weeny party. But the work itself, from my point of view as the instructor or of the workshop, was basically me trying to give to them what I had been given by my writing teacher, who was Janet Fitch. And I had taken notes in her workshop. I entered that workshop in 1999. Freshwater Road came out in 2005. So for those years that I was sitting in her workshop, I was taking notes because I thought she was such an incredible teacher. So I whipped out those little notebooks and brought them to the table. I said, okay, this is what we're going to do, y'all. And so we're going to, you know, it would be things like one of the things everybody said, go deeper, go deeper. One of the big things that I worked on with them is writing the senses. All your senses have to be involved, not your senses and the characters in your writing have to be exploited, because that's how you get to know people. You get to know people sometimes about how they look, how they feel, how
Mhm.
they, it's all of that, all of what makes us human beings has to be in the text. It has to be on the page.
Right.
Akilah, one of the things Denise taught us, and Hattie Winston reminded me the other day, is she taught us that before you start to write, sit down and read some poetry.
Read poetry.
It gives you a sense of lyricism. It gives you a sense of picturing things,
Mhm.
and so that when you write, it sort of begins to expand how you approach the work. And so we've all done that now, and when we write at home, uh, we all try to read some poetry before we start. Yeah.
To also say writing is how we carry forward the legacy our bodies cannot. And I agree with you. I believe that so many of our stories, you said, that's what you said. You said that our senses have to be in the work.
Yes.
And I think Charles did a great job with that. I mean, everybody did a great job with that, but Charles did a great job with that with Soda Fountain Diaries. I believe that so many of our stories get lost over time. And if we don't intentionally pass them down generation to generation, we risk forgetting who we are. Honestly, I think families, I wish my family was as organized enough to have something like a writer's workshop, a space for us to share and preserve our stories for our children, as you
Mhm.
guys with the Longwood Writers Workshop. So the story that really did stand out to me was Soda Fountain Diaries,
Mhm.
because I'm from Philadelphia, the tri-state area, Charles being from Delaware. And you know, he said that because you say, Charles, that because of your parents' ambition, you were able to dream. And your love for entertainment was sparked in your parents' soda shop. It struck me, what if they hadn't opened it? And and also, what if they hadn't kept pushing, and you talk about that in the story. So it just reminded me of how vital it is for our children to witness us pursuing our dreams. I asked my son, did he want to come out and watch me do this interview? And he didn't have any interest. But so anyway, do you have children, Charles? And if so, how do they feel about your accomplishments as a three-time Emmy Award winning producer, actor, and now published author?
Well, my daughter's always been there for me. Denise knows her well, and she's always been supportive of me. She's a lawyer, and she's there for me as my wife, her mother, Ann Johnson. So she's very proud of me. She reads everything I do and calls me and writes and whatever. So that's important.
Mhm.
And and we've all gotten to know, Denise has a 103-year-old mother, and we've all gotten to know her.
Wow.
Yes. And we've all gotten to know our stories about our
A family.
family,
Mhm.
and the families that we found were most important to who we were, growing up. And when you asked that question in your questions, you said, "What if they hadn't opened that soda shop?" I thought, well, who knows what road? You never know. Um, One of the things that I wanted to write Soda Fountain Diaries was when I was young. Uh, Black people were either in Amos and Andy or Beulah or those kinds of things. And but there were three Black people who had television shows in
Mhm.
the 50s. They were 15-minute shows. Hazel Scott, um, Nat King Cole, and Billy Daniels.
Really
And I
did.
used to see them, and I couldn't sing, but I thought I want to come out somehow at 8 or 9 years old. I want to do what they're doing. So I've always marveled at the fact that I got that dream in the soda shop, and I kept it going until I could make it a reality. Yeah.
I love that story. Denise, I want to ask you the same question. Do you have children? Uh,
No.
if, or maybe nieces and nephews?
Yes.
And how do you think that watching you excel in so many areas, from acting to writing, might be inspiring them to become the best versions of themselves?
I think that's kind of built in
Mhm.
in our family. There was no pressure that I know of from my brother's deceased, their father, uh, to do one thing or the other. but there was a standard of living and a standard of behavior that was there because grandparents and parents put it in place, and that's the structure of the family. My nephew is a photographer. He's the one who has a creative side. And I have some of his photographs framed in my home because he has photographed Detroit, the rebuild of Detroit, and the photographs are gorgeous. So at some point, I always think, well, maybe I'll gather his photographs and we'll do a book of his photographs as the Detroit rebuild carries on. I would love that for him. I know I he came to LA to live for a while. Both of them lived with me for a while. Of course, I beat him up all the time about what I was a stern taskmaster. He wanted to work in television. I got him hooked up at BET, so he worked over there for a while. But I knew he was a still photographer. He's a still photographer, and he's really quite good, quite good. So I think that's, I don't know, the being a creative in Black middle class families is probably not the most desired thing that parents would want for their children, because it's so, you just don't know. It's up and down. You don't know if you're going to make it. It's not like I'm going to go to college and become a lawyer. It's just not that straight ahead. It wobbles to the right, it wobbles to the left. You work, you don't work. It's hard. And a lot of parents don't want their children to go through that kind of life where you're unemployed for 6 months of the year or whatever. Yeah, go ahead, Charles.
I know. You just touched on something. I read something today. Tina Knowles has a book out, and it's doing very well. And I read said she would hope that Blue Ivy does not become the entertainer that her mother was. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. But I think it's for all the reasons that Denise just mentioned. It's a business that is, you're up and down, and you can be out of work, and you don't know sometimes where the next job's coming from. Luckily, people like Denise and Hattie and I have had fairly consistent work. And when we didn't, we found other things to do. The one thing I really love that I wanted to run by you was to mention, and Denise Nicholas won't do this. She has just completed her memoir.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
It's called Finding Home. I'm hoping, and it's coming out in November.
Okay.
And advance word from the publisher is wonderful. So I just want to make sure that gets out there, because she got a fascinating life. So I want to mention that.
Maybe I'll get to interview you about that book.
Would be great.
Okay, so since we're running out of time, oh my gosh, I had so many questions. I want to do two more really quickly if we can, and then we're going to do the rapid fire. I wanted to know, what do you hope that readers, so it's kind of like two questions in one. What do you hope readers, because readers could be anybody, and then young writers of color, what do you hope that these two groups of people take away from reading this anthology?
Denise? Well, I can. Once we realized that we could get this book together and that we could tell stories that would illustrate and demonstrate what it was like for us in terms of the challenges of living, of going through loss, love, all of those things. When we realized that, we thought, this is what we want people to read and take away from the lessons that we lived, and maybe they can apply them to their lives, and find something personal in those stories that they can say, I understand that, or I saw how they did it. Maybe I can do that, or I can take something from them and do. We hope that is what and certainly young readers of color. And I hope if they're young people, this book is for both young and old. And I hope for young people who want to be writers, or who want to learn how we swam these waters, that they read and take some good things away from all the things.
Running through the whole book really is the feeling that life is not easy, but we keep getting up. We keep pushing against the doors that are closed. We keep pushing, pushing. We keep redefining. We keep filling out empty spaces, and those are our experiences, and those are in these stories, and that's in many of the stories of Black writers, but of other writers as well, because it's life experience heightened. It's life experience done with exquisite language, but it's still life experience. It is life. Writing is life.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, very much so.
And that was a major theme, resilience throughout all
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
the acts. So do you think you would ever turn this into a stage or film project?
I
Oh,
doubt it.
sir.
No?
We we might at some time do a kind of a broader reading of the material and put it together, not as a particular stage production per se, but we've talked about that. But we've all got so many things to do, and we're all feeling the clock ticking. So I'm not sure we'll ever go there. And Denise has a project that she's hoping to do, and that is to get Freshwater Road up also as a film. And I'm working on several projects as well. One is a documentary on the Congressional Black Caucus, and some other things. So I don't think we'll get to that with this book.
We'll start with I'm gonna just skip around. So we'll
Okay.
start with you first, Charles. First story you ever wrote.
Uh, I wrote a little story when I was about 10 years old for the neighborhood kids who wanted to be in a play. And I wrote the play. I didn't know what I was doing, but I did that, and I think we performed it for the kids and the parents in the neighborhood.
Okay, Denise, pen or keyboard?
Keyboard.
Charles, favorite word?
Uh, Peace.
Hmm. Denise, first book you ever fell in love with?
Oh my Lord. Oh, I'll do my adult version because I can't remember the ones I loved in high school. It's so long ago. One of my favorite reads is Love in the Time of Cholera. I say this all the time. Gabriel Garcia Marquez's book, which is just gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. So I
Okay.
go back and read that again and again because the writing is so beautiful.
Charles, if you could write from anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Oh Lord. This is going to sound a little precious. Uh, the south of France.
Wonderful. I've never
France
been
somewhere.
somewhere in
Somewhere.
France. We're just right in France. Okay. Denise, morning writer or night owl?
Morning, always morning.
Charles, a book you wish you'd written.
Uh, Jazz by Toni Morrison.
Okay. Denise, one thing you always need near you when you write.
Coffee.
That was good. Uh, Charles, pen and paper or all digital?
Truthfully, I prefer pen and paper, but in reality, it's all digital.
Yeah. Uh,
Faster and easier.
and our last rapid fire question, Denise, is for you. If a gathering of voices was a song, what would it be for you?
Oh my Lord. Oh
Charles
my,
answered that one already.
woo. My goodness. I I I'm from Detroit. Music is in me. I mean, black music is in me. It's like,
Yes.
I can't sing, I can't play an instrument, but it's still in me because that's what I heard. I think it would be something, I don't know, maybe something by the Temptations or the Diana Ross and the Supremes. Something like
Okay. I love that answer. It was amazing. Uh, sitting with you guys tonight. Thank you so much. And much success to a gathering of voices and to you guys and your future endeavors.